I haven't played Gigout Scherzo since I recorded this video 3 years ago. Today, I'm going back to it to see if I can still play it, and to play it in the way Gigout would have expected, with crisp articulation, close attention to the dynamics, and a slightly modified registration that I think suits the Tewkesbury Abbey organ really well. Let's learn it, let's get it registered, and then I'll give you a full performance at the end. Won't we, Nala?
She is such a distraction. Anyway, let's put our pussycat down and pick up our organ.
Okay, so the first thing we should look at is the registration, because that's probably the easiest part of this. So he asked for the Récit, Fons et Ange 8 and 4. So that's the reeds, and then the foundation stops 8 and 4. So I'm going to go for the open diapason, and the principal 4, and the trumpet, and the clarion 4. The grand orgue, he wants the foundations 8 and 4. So I'm actually going to pull out all of the 8 and 4s on the great, and then the pedal 16 and 8. It doesn't ask for a pedal coupler. Now, French composers were normally very specific whether they wanted couplers or not, so I'm going to leave it off for now.
And now you join me playing this piece for the first time in 3 years. Ever since I was a teenager, this piece has always been one of my favourites. I first heard it on a recording by Andrew Lucas at St Paul's Cathedral in London. And it always stuck in my mind as a really exciting, cheeky, fun piece. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I learnt it for the first time. I still struggle with it now, actually, with the rhythms. And in this video, I'll explain why I find it difficult, and let's see if we can get through all of those anxieties and hurdles in the performance at the end. So what you hear me doing here is really focusing on the legato line. Eugene was very specific about this piece being legato. The whole piece is full of these very long phrase marks. So he clearly wanted it to be played in a very certain way. And here you can hear me just playing these spread chords as block chords, just to make sure I'm playing the right notes basically. Let's give it a run. Oh, come on, that was alright, wasn't it? Well, to be fair, this was the easy part, right? So did you see me pull out that stop? That's the swell to great, and at the beginning, Gigout doesn't specify any couplers, let alone the great to pedal, as we spoke about earlier. You would have thought that he would specify swell to great, but he doesn't. But actually, this piece does require you to have that stop on. It's one of the most used stop on any organs, isn't it? In any organ piece as well. Name me a stop which you use more frequently than the swell to great. Let me know in the comments. As usual, my left hand is having an absolute nightmare with this relatively straightforward arpeggio, but it just doesn't seem to want to play ball. Or maybe it does want to play ball and not Gigout, and actually it just wants to go and have a round of pool or snooker. Anyway, I'm trying to get it to play this relatively straightforward arpeggio, starting on the E with the thumb, finger 2 on the D sharp, going under to finger 1, which is the thumb on the B, which then lines up your hand perfectly for the F sharp and the low B. This piece is filled with different rhythmical motifs, and here is an example in the left hand. The rhythm starts on the third quaver of the first beat, so it's important that that note isn't late. This passage is also the first time we hear the pedal moving on each beat of the bar, providing a very precise tempo. Take a listen to what this sounds like without any pedal couplers.
So as you see on the first page, it says grand orgue et Récit. That basically implies that we are going to couple those Récits down to the grand orgue. I've just decided that actually, even though he doesn't explicitly say Récit et pedal, I'm going to add the swell to pedal anyway, because I just realized then that the pedal is too quiet underneath all of that. So I'm going to actually put on the great pedal as well to see what that sounds like.
And if you do stick around for the performance later, you'll soon see whether the pedal balances any better This next section is where Gigout starts to get a little bit more ambitious with his writing and harmony. Not only that, these ascending scales need careful thought on fingering. So what I'm doing here is changing the rhythm so I can focus on when I'm putting my thumb under. I personally find that changing the rhythm is more helpful and beneficial than simply playing something slower. It allows your hand to get properly into the right position before moving on to the next few notes. If you've seen my previous commentary videos, you'll know that I talk a lot about muscle memory, and no matter how slowly you play something, your muscles are still learning. The slower you play something, the more reliably you can train your muscle memory to get your hand into the right position for when you play things quickly.
I'm just going to write some fingering here in the left hand. I'm running out of fingers, so I want finger 2 on the first note of each bar there.
Just whilst I become reacquainted with this section, which is it's harder than it looks, please believe me, I've discovered something quite interesting about Gigout, which I didn't know. Did you know he was the organist of St. Augustin for 62 years? It's incredible. He must have really liked that organ. And the organ was rebuilt in 1899 by McVeigh, at which point Barker lever action was added, which makes the action on the grand orgue or the grate much lighter. So it's reasonable to think that prior to that it might have been quite heavy. Think about playing Vidor's famous Toccata on a very heavy organ. By the time you got halfway through, you're dying from exhaustion because it's so heavy and your wrists are starting to ache. So I think that might feed down into how we interpret music from this period, including this piece. An allegro tempo at the beginning, back in the 1800s, has a different feeling to the allegro that we know in 2026, because we're so spoiled with our organs. Everything's so easy on the pianos, on the string instruments. Everything has been made so much better for the player. To me, it's like putting a racing driver from the 1920s or 30s into a racing car from the past 5 years. That racing driver back in the 20s, 30s thought they were going incredibly fast, but it's nothing compared to what cars can go like today. Isn't that the same? I don't know. Why don't you let me know your thoughts in the comments? I always end up talking about cars in my organ videos. And this will come into the end of this tricky section. This is the first hard section. Shall we talk about some interpretation?
I'm going to take a liberty because Gigout doesn't explicitly say anything about slowing down or having a bit of time just to get back up to the récit for the recap of the tune for that. But actually, I think because we were in quite a generous acoustic in this building, Tewkesbury, I think actually it might lend itself to slowing down into that phrase. So let's just see what it sounds like with just a little bit of time going into the recap.
And if I was going to demonstrate that properly, I would have had the box open. Well, later on I have the box open and the acoustic is even more washy, which really lends itself to that slight slowing down into the cadence there. I remember when I first started learning this piece 3 years ago, this section was absolutely horrible to learn. It took me such a long time to get my head and fingers and coordination around it. The right and the left hand are essentially in canon with each other, with the strong beats falling at different times. A sharps, G naturals, D sharps, F naturals, E flats, C naturals, D naturals, you name it, this has got it. It's a little bit like one of those really unhygienic communal nut bowls in a bar with some sharps and flats instead. So what I'm doing in my mind is I'm actually aiming towards the strong beat of these motifs, which is always on the first beat of the bar. That just gave me some direction to aim towards and allowed my mind and hands to focus their journey to a specific point in time. Does that make sense? I don't know how else to explain it. But one thing I do know how to explain is this next section which we spoke about earlier with these ascending scales, where I change the rhythm, slow it right down, dot some of these quavers so they're not equal length, and that really focuses the muscle memory.
So this next section is where I'm actually going to adjust the registration slightly. So he says, take off the reeds on the swell, have the box open for the piano, and for the pianissimos, have the box closed. What I'm actually going to do is just change the registration here slightly. So yes, take off the reeds. So that basically leaves us with the 8 and 4 foot. However, we started with the open diapason and the principal, which are, diapasonally bright sounds. But I actually want to take that down to the flute stops. But I want to explore some of the other stops on this organ. So I'm going to try bringing down the 8 and 4 flutes on the solo division. And also I want to bring the sound forwards. And this organ has a beautifully clear and a very forward sounding choir division. And then I'm going to have the 8 and 4 flutes on the grate as well. So rather than using the box, I'm going to use the manuals to go between the pianos and the pianissimos. This is also where the articulation needs close attention. It's the first time, I think, in the whole piece that we've actually seen some staccatos, followed by legatos and then staccatos. So there has to be a difference. So I'm going to be working on getting those staccatos really quite short.
And for me, this section is where the scherzo truly becomes a scherzo. So it's so important that we get the nuances between the legatos and the staccatos really contrasting. Let's just consider for a moment what scherzo actually means. So it's Italian for joke or jest. Musically, it usually means a movement or piece with a light, playful character, typically fast, rhythmically lively, which this piece definitely is, and often with quick contrasts. So this middle section is all about those quick contrasts. I think in this scherzo by Gigout, we're aiming for sparkle, buoyancy, and clarity. Sometimes it definitely helps to look into the composer's background and to see the sort of person they are. It doesn't always help. It doesn't always make things better. Sometimes it might put you off the composer and their music. But in terms of Gigout, it definitely helps. Listen to this. This is Gabriel Fauré talking about Gigout. All who have known him would agree with me that the charm of his character, his seriousness, the goodness of his heart, and his unbelievable modesty have remained the same. I think if we think about his charm and the goodness of his heart, I think that really puts us into a good place to play this piece. And actually, this piece it's a very humble piece. So I think that plays into Gigout's modesty and might encourage us to play it in a more playful and light-hearted and ultimately a happy manner, with a smile on our faces. Well, here we go. Have a listen to my articulation, my dynamics, and my registration. Please leave me a comment. Please click the like button. And I hope that this piece makes you smile. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll assume you did, because you're still here. If you're new around here, get yourself subscribed, leave me a comment. I do read all the comments and I do really appreciate them. Click the like button, have an amazing day, and if you don't, I want to know why. Until next time, I'll say cheerio. Goodbye.